Historians do not know if the list of pharaohs they compiled is consecutive or concurrent, meaning, is it consecutive, meaning year after year after year, or actually some pharaohs ruled concurrently as either co-regents or different parts of the country. Finally, we examine the Torah. The main facts we seek to be recorded in history are the major occurrences or episodes that are cited that happened in the Torah. The Great Flood. The Great Flood is corroborated by Chinese and Babylonian history. Both put the Exodus between 1455 and 1215 BCE. Practically, the earliest date it could have been was 1305 BCE, like we said before, going all the way back to 1455 BCE. There was a rise of a great co-regent to Pharaoh who brought prosperity to Egypt. That is Yosef. There is also the combining of the Lower and Upper Egypt at the time. It is important to know that Egypt was not always one large country, like it was during the Exodus. There were two kingdoms. There was Lower Egypt, north, near the Nile, and Upper Egypt, south, on higher ground. Think of how New York developed. First there was New Amsterdam, later to be termed New York City, then the entire state became settled. There was Egypt District and the city of Egypt in Lower Egypt. That is what the Bible refers to as Egypt. When the Bible says land of Egypt, that means the entire country, lower and upper. In Genesis, only Egypt is mentioned. After the 7 years of famine and Joseph buys up the property and enslaves all the people in exchange for their food purchase, the Torah talks about the land of Egypt. This must have occurred between 1515 BCE and 1735 BCE. Surprise! The second intermediate period and the New Kingdom both commenced during this timeline. We can safely presume now that prior to that, Egypt was just a small city-state in Lower Egypt. Joseph combined them during the period exactly as the Bible says. An enslaved people is hard to decipher, and Egyptian history is fraught with enslaved foreigners. However, there is evidence of Egypt being xenophobic, just as the Torah says the Egyptians were xenophobic toward the Hebrews, the Semites. What about evidence of the 10 plagues in Egypt? Or a period of annihilation, as the Exodus would have also created destruction of Egypt so bad that there would be evidence in Egyptian history of a period of collapse. Finally, anyone called Moses? Look at the verses of the Torah. A new king of Egypt rose. This refers to the local nomarch, not Pharaoh. King in Egypt in the Bible is a nomarch. Pharaoh in the Bible is Pharaoh. Taxes and the building of Ramses. The city could have been renamed much later. The Torah constantly uses names that were used when the Torah was actually given and not when the events actually occurred. See, for example, Luz and Bethel and Kadesh. All the people that Moses worried about died. This seems to be the Pharaoh that wanted Moses' head, or possibly a co-regent or nomarch. The name Moshe in Moshe is because he was drawn from the water. However, the name Mose and Moshe actually means born from or drawn from. So very possibly Moshe means drawn from the water. Many pharaohs had the name Mose as part of their name. Thutmose is an example. Remember his name because he is our likely candidate for the pharaoh we seek. As for the 10 plagues, there is evidence that certain mummified pharaohs showed evidence of boils on their skins and lice and maceration. There are stories of great locust gatherings and lengthy days of darkness. Egyptian history would not talk about the 10 plagues because it is not the best look for Egypt, and history is written always by the perspective of the author. There would be evidence, perhaps, of them in mummified remains or in archaeology like we talked about.